if we look at Patsy's chart, Patsy was attributed right here. So we know Patsy touched right here for sure of the Barbie nightgown. She touched right here somewhere. We're kind of unsure. We think that she may have touched right here, interior and exterior of the shoulders. So for sure, we know Burke and Patsy touched right here, but it's possible he touched here, 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 on the front and the back, and here. We're kind of looking at the waistband. The unknown male kind of touched right here, and then kind of touched right here. What? What? Is it my birthday? Am I being set up? Am I being set? What's happening? What's this? Am I being tracked by the CIA? This is a trap. I did, yo. That's crazy. Rohat, 1, Maine. I appreciate you. Oh my goodness. Yo, that's crazy. If you see him in the chat, show some love. You have to. You have no choice. You see them in the chat anywhere. Tell them thank you for supporting the channel, showing love. Appreciate the monetary gift. I appreciate you. You didn't have to do it, but you did, and I am grateful. Thank you all for supporting the channel. Thank you both for supporting the channel in a crazy way. Thank you. Now I have to give you a hug. You asked for it. This is what you wanted. Basically, when you did this, you said, I want a hug. So, group hug. Thank you so much. And I hope you enjoy the next video. Once again, shout out again to Rohat in Maine. That was crazy. When I get this angle, somebody said it looks like I have scuba gear on. So let's dive right in. Kind of walking through the forensic side really is what we want to do. I've been trying to figure out how to present this in the best way that I can. And so it's clunky. It's going to be a little clunky. And so essentially just kind of walking through some of the weird parts of the forensics, the DNA, the thing that got the Ramseys exonerated. And I'm walking through this as I understand it. Okay. And so going to get a little weird, might be a little bit frustrating, and kind of trying to pull through some of the things that are a little bit overlooked on the forensic side. And so you've probably heard of by now, if you've been in tune with this case, maybe you haven't, you don't have to. You've probably heard of the unknown male DNA. And so that's a thing, that's put out there. But once you begin to kind of dig and kind of look at the actual testing from Bode Technology, which is who Mary Lacey used, the DA that exonerated the Ramseys, that's who she used. When you look at that, and they said the results from 08, I think the 08 testing was the same as the 97 testing. And so the results are pretty consistent, I think is what they're saying. So when you look at that, from what I've seen, kind of go through what was found, what shows up, and maybe what wasn't there. So kind of start looking at stuff and being like, so without further ado, as you can see, my screen is up. The first thing I want to jump into is kind of the DNA and the unknown male. And so if we read through this, the DNA was collected from the victim and all family members and analyzed by the CBI through the PCR format and subsequently through the STR format. A mixture of the victim's DNA and the DNA of an unknown male from an unidentified origin was found on the private area and the leg band area of the underwear, or I'll say undergarments worn by JonBenet. The DNA was analyzed through the STR format and has been entered into CODIS. The Boulder DA office has not been provided the sequencing of the STR analysis of DNA obtained from the Ramsey family members. The DNA obtained from the undergarments is identified as CBI investigation specimen number, blah, blah, blah. The specimen consists of the following loci and alleles. So Yeah. So actually loci and alleles, which essentially, if I understand, so like loci, if you think of like loci is like your hair, you know what I mean? Like, you know, the loci of your hair, it's like like a point, if I understand it correctly. And then like the alleles are like what kind of hair. So it's like, you know, this location and this kind of thing. Like if you think about a mailbox, like that's your loci, you know, or your locus. But the alleles are like what's inside the mailbox. Like you have certain kinds of mail inside of the mailbox, if I understand it correctly. So like going back to the hair example, if you think about hair, it's like, you know, I have hair, yeah, that's my loci, but you know, my alleles are my like I have blonde hair or brown hair. I have one blonde or one brown. So we took a blonde piece of hair from the um, blondish brown um, hair, whatever. So that's kind of what it is. So essentially, they're saying that a mixture of the victim's DNA and the unknown male was found here. And so the unknown male from an unidentified origin found in the private area and the leg band area of the underwear. Now, I know a lot of times this is supposed to be I think the Wednesday underwear, but I think they're actually talking about the long johns. And I'll tell you why. Because when I scroll through this forensic report, and this is the report, and they have a lot more information here. But when I scroll through this report, and this is to, I think, Mary Lacey, November 7th of '07, Shannon Evanstad, the Bow Technology Group, kind of looking at the investigation. And this letter is to address the evidentiary items submitted to the Bow Technology Group for DNA analysis. And so they kind of give an overview, but getting back to our part, and it's kind of like an interesting read, but kind of getting back to our part, you have the DNA that they test with the underwear. But when they're talking about that, I believe they're talking about long johns, because when I scroll down here, I don't see anything about the Wednesdays at all. Got the ligature from the wrist, black piece of duct tape, and then you get here to the long underwear, the bottom portion. And that's what I think they're talking. And that's why I say the long. I think they're talking about, and you know, you kind of keep on going, the rope found in the guest room, and then sincerely, Andy. And that's kind of the end of that. And so I think they're actually talking about the long johns. And so originally, and this is my opinion. Originally, and this is what I'm working off of. Originally, I thought it was the Wednesdays that they found the male unidentified male DNA on, but that does not seem to be the case, as I understand what they're saying. So if we scroll back up and go to this portion, we kind of read through it. So they say long underwear, bottom portion, white in color with an elastic waistband. Evidence at the crime scene indicated the perpetrator removed or pulled down the long underwear worn by JonBenet. The assault occurred. They were then pulled back up to the original position. John Ramsey would have touched the long underwear when he carried his daughter from the family vehicle and placed her into the bed. John Ramsey also touched the long underwear after he discovered his daughter in the basement and carried her upstairs, not previously examined for DNA. That's interesting because I thought Patsy changed her, right? I thought this was the changed, you know what I mean? Like, why would John have touched this? I thought he changed her already. So I feel like this should have been examined for DNA. But in terms of talking about the perpetrator, not only do you have this specification, but I think we have a specification a little bit further down the line. Let me see if I can skip to. And this is going through the forensic reports. This is all I found. Like maybe you guys might find something different, but this is all I found. So, and this is why I say I don't think it's talking about the Wednesdays, the Bloomies. I think it's talking about the Long Johns that the unidentified male is attached to. When I go through all the forensic reports, this is the only thing I see the unidentified male attached to. Once again, coming from Andy. Okay. Coming from Andy. Says, December 3rd of 07. Okay. Labeled as white long underwear bottoms. Now we have 2S0710105A, same thing 05B, same thing 05C, same thing 05D. And what that means is you have the exterior top right half of the long johns. You have the exterior top left half of the long johns, interior top right, interior top left. Okay. So, and this is with regard to the unknown male. So Denver PD produces an unknown male profile, submits it to Bow Technology. And when they take that unknown male profile and they test it against this is what they come up with. So the DNA profile for A, which is exterior top right, half of the long johns. So we're talking about the exterior top right. The unknown male profile cannot be excluded as a possible contributor to the mixture DNA. So I'm just going to tell you right out, that's probably the strongest that you're going to get. The strongest that you're going to get is that it cannot be excluded. And I think that's like the only one. Cannot be excluded from the DNA. Okay. And that's about it. And kind of furthermore, when we look at this, I think it's important to note that this is touch DNA, right? This is not like saliva. It's not blood. This is touch DNA. So the unknown male profile only shows up as like a mixture in touch DNA form. It's not fluids. It's not a strong profile. This is like skin cells and stuff like that. And like skin that's like you've touched something and it's gone all over the place, right? That's what it is, right? So even though this is kind of strong in saying that, you know, the profile can't be excluded, means that, and some of the language, this is the strongest language I say because other language says can't be included or excluded, right? So it's a little bit more iffy. And if I can kind of give like a little bit of a look to it, this is kind of what they're saying or what they're alleging, that the unknown male touched probably, you know, if we're looking at this as the waistband, according to what we've just read, if we're kind of looking at the waistband, the unknown male kind of touched right here, and then kind of touched right here. Because they were, and this is my perception of what I'm reading. And, you know, you kind of have the waistband, and then you kind of have sort of like the leg region, the elastic leg region. Obviously the crotch and the leg region is what you have. So this is what the unknown male is being attributed to. That's what the DNA, whatever this profile means, that's what it's being attributed to. This is exterior. Okay. Now let's move on to the second thing. We want to get to the second thing. The second thing is going to be, let's say Patsy. So just like the unknown male, when we think about Patsy Ramsey, in these cases, these are all the places that Patsy was. Now the language is different for Patsy, and let's see. Patsy we have on page, I think Patsy is on page 8 of this report. So I'll slide up really quickly. Yeah, page 8. And it's kind of the same thing. When you're looking at the long johns, right? Exterior top right, exterior top left, interior top right, interior top left. So when we go through this, and we'll probably come back when we go to Burke, when we look at I think this is exterior top left, part A. Exterior top right. Everybody is excluded. Strong information, everybody's excluded. You got Burke, you got Patsy, you got John, you got Melinda, you got John Andrew. But when we get to the left-hand side, John, Melinda, John Andrew, they're excluded. But when we get to the left-hand side, exterior left-hand side of the long johns, talking about the top left, it looks like neither Burke nor Patsy can be included or excluded. Now, remember when we were talking about the unknown male, that's probably the most, I'd say, probably the strongest language that we can use in them saying that he cannot be excluded from what he's kind of touched in those areas. I think it being the elastic waistband, this individual. But here we kind of get a flip-flop. They can't be included or excluded. That means we don't know, but we don't have enough information to roll them out. This is similar to saying that Patsy was like a 4 or 4.5 out of 5 on that scale for the ransom note. She just could not be excluded. We don't know. We're still trying to figure it out. And this is kind of what this is saying. So again, when we talk about, and the same thing when we talk about the pineapple, there's kind of like a circulation, right? Here we have the same two individuals. Once again, what's the word shall I use? Locked up in some mess, right? You got the pineapple, the bowl of pineapple. You have the tea glass that contained the fingerprints of Patsy and Burke, right? Oh, that was earlier. Okay, cool. And obviously when you go through the transcripts, Patsy talks about, hey, we had lunch with these kids, blah, 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 blah. She doesn't ever mention, serving pineapple earlier on in the day. You see what I'm saying? She could have very easily, well, we had some pineapple. Not that I've seen. Now, I could go back in transcripts and see it, but I didn't see it. But essentially, again, we have the same two individuals who are caught up in some mess with the forensics. We can't include you, but we can't exclude you either. So that means in this case, when we look at the forensics, you two are potential. John can go, but you two, Patsy and Burke, are potential suspects, according to this document. We go on and we look at part C is not tested. It's unsuitable. And then part D is also untested. It's unsuitable, but it has a mixture of at least 3 people. Okay. And that's what I want to show. And if we look at Patsy's chart, Patsy was attributed right here, right? I think this is the left-hand side exterior, I believe. Left-hand side exterior. And we're going to kind of talk about this. I guess we can jump to that. So that's going to be, I think, page 10. So just a little skip forward. Kind of same, labeled as the Barbie nightgown. And we're still doing Patsy. Labeled as the Barbie nightgown. You have your part A, B, C, and D. Same thing. Exterior and interior bottom front of the nightgown. Exterior left shoulder region in front and back. Exterior right shoulder, front and back. Exterior and interior, bottom, back. So when we talk about Patsy. When we talk about part A, which is the exterior and the interior bottom front of the nightgown, neither Patsy nor Burke can be excluded. Now that's a little bit stronger because Patsy and Burke are now tied to it. They didn't say can be included and excluded. This is saying Patsy and Burke cannot be excluded. Same thing that they said about the unidentified male, but except they're talking about the nightgown. I'm going to have some questions for you on that in just a little bit. Give me some time. So moving forward, part B, Burke and Patsy cannot be included or excluded. Possible contributors to part B. Same thing for part C. Burke nor Patsy can be included or excluded. When we look at part B and C, So let's just look at A. Exterior, interior, bottom of the nightgown. Exterior left shoulder, exterior right shoulder. Going down to part D. And I might be getting a little bit ahead of myself. Part D is going to be Burke, so I'll come back to that. So when we pull up Patsy's chart, these are the places, interior and exterior, that Patsy touched or potentially touched of the shoulders of the nightgown. And then right here. So if we go back here and we say, okay, what can she not be excluded from? She cannot be excluded from part A. So we know for sure Patsy touched exterior and interior, bottom, front. So we know Patsy touched right here for sure. That's what it's telling us of the Barbie nightgown. She touched right here somewhere. We're kind of unsure. We think that she may have touched right here, interior and exterior of the shoulders. That would make sense though. Okay. And especially right here. And I know this is showing full long johns, but I think it was actually just the bottom part. So just kind of imagine these are pants. So what we're saying here is that Patsy could have touched this. She for sure touched this. She could have touched this. That would make sense. And John told us why this would make sense, because Patsy changed her clothes and put her to bed. Okay, that makes sense. Let's move on to Burke. As you know, as we just went through, same thing is attributable to Burke in terms of, so I won't belabor that point. Same thing is attributable to Burke in terms of the long johns, as is Patsy. But the difference is for Burke is he's attributed in part D. The individual associated with Burke, Ramsey, cannot be included or excluded as possible mixture into part D. Part D being the back, I think it is. Exterior and interior of the bottom back of the nightgown. So when we pull up Burke's chart, so Burke is attributed here, possibly here, for certain here. This is kind of representative of the back. Work with me here. These two dots are representative of the back. And then obviously this is representative of the interior and exterior where he touched, possibly. And this is kind of representative of the back. Okay, possibly where he touched. So for sure we know Burke and Patsy touched right here. But it's possible he touched here, 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 on the front and the back, and here. Okay. It's kind of got me thinking, because let me just stop here and ask you this. John said that and this is kind of like my third point. We're on Burke. This is my third point. John said that he got JonBenet out the car, took upstairs, and put her in bed. She was stone cold knocked out. He almost dropped her. Okay? She knocked out. For some strange and odd reason, even though she was knocked out and couldn't see in stars, could see in Tweety birds, couldn't see night from day, even though she was knocked out, he still felt the need to read a book to her. The girl is out of her mind. She's gone. Why would you be reading a book? That don't make sense. Number one. Number two, he came in, put her down, and walked the heck out. Went downstairs because Burke didn't want to go to sleep. We know from what Patsy told us in the interviews that Burke could have been doing one or two things. Burke had plenty to do. Burke told us he had a Lego set or something like that, or John said he had a Lego set. Burke said, I had this toy. So John and Burke agreed. There was this toy that Burke couldn't get away from. He wanted to put it together. John was like, man, there's not enough time. We got to put it together tomorrow. We got to get up early or something like that. Burke was like, Bull crap. I'm getting up again. Y'all can go to sleep. Sleeping is for suckers. Me, winners, champions, don't sleep. I'm waking up and I'm going to play with my toys. What I want to know is, and John supposedly read him to sleep. Said, "You're a good son. I love you." And Burke said, "I love you too, Dad." And promptly waited till his dad went to sleep and got back up and went back downstairs. What I wonder is, if JonBenet was put to sleep in her room, first thing when she got home, and she didn't wake up, and they changed her clothes, as John said, Patsy's going to come in and put her in her night clothes. If they changed her clothes, we got one or two scenarios. Let me present the first one. Let's just say her clothes were not changed by anyone when she was taken out of the bed. Let's say she stayed in these clothes. If Burke just got up and went back downstairs and didn't mess with nobody, didn't bother anybody, didn't hear anything, didn't interact with anyone, everybody's in bed except Burke. Help me understand why in any concrete way Burke's if we change the clothes, I'm assuming that we pull clean clothes from the drawer. Why would Burke's DNA at all, touch DNA at all, be right here? Why would that be? Because Burke's not in JonBenet's room. Even to the extent of here, on the front, on the back, on the front, and on the back. Possibly on the front, possibly on the back, possibly on the front, for certain on the front. If you didn't interact with JonBenet that night, how is your touch DNA on her clothes? We know how Patsy's touch DNA got there because Patsy directly interacted with her, especially all this, putting the gown over her head and pulling the trousers up over her legs, and we got all that. And then obviously pulling the nightgown down over her head and kind of straightening it up around her shoulders and stuff like that. That makes sense. But let me make an example like this. If a complete stranger, let's say an uncle of JonBenet, if JonBenet's uncle ain't in Colorado and JonBenet is fitted with a fresh set of pajamas, then her uncle's DNA would be nowhere to be found because he's not in the house. So his DNA does not exist in the house. He didn't go in her room, so his DNA does not exist in her room. He did not interact with her, so therefore his DNA would not be there. You see what I'm saying? I could understand if Burke's information or his DNA is found, especially touch DNA. Touch DNA is light and it's murky. I would call touch DNA like, yo, you gotta be like touching something. Like you gotta be, you know what I mean? Like you gotta touch it. You gotta be close to it. And I would dang near say that the touch DNA has to kind of be a little bit recent, a little bit, for you to be able to boom, and you got to interact with it. That's where I'm confused. Because if you did not interact with JonBenet at all, how is your DNA found certainly here, but possibly here and here? It shouldn't be there. My point is, it shouldn't be there at all. And I'm going to move on to my next point. But I'm just saying, it should not be there at all. That's what's flooring me. The fourth thing I want to get to is that other than there's like a robe Um, there's a robe with maybe possibly saliva on it, or male fluids that they tested, and there was a report where they had, I think, like Fleet, the Steins, the Fernies. They took their blood samples, but they didn't test anybody against it. They just said, "Hey, this robe has some male fluids on it," and that was it. They didn't say who the robe belonged to. They just said, "There's this male robe with some, or there's this robe with some male fluid on it." They didn't test anybody against it, but they did collect people's blood samples and stuff like that. You have that. You also have the garrote. You have, or the toggle rope. You have the ligatures, the wrist ligatures and the neck ligatures. No solid DNA that I can recount looking through these forensic reports. No solid DNA was found on these things. And just so you know, maybe I'm tripping. Okay. Maybe I'm tripping. Was it part? Let's just do page 4. Or you know what? Page 7, I believe it is. Yeah. Rope from the bedroom, found in a bag, found on a bag on a chair. Item not being examined for DNA. Long johns not previously examined. Black piece of duct tape, even though John touched it, Fleet touched it, only seems to match. DNA only seems to match JonBenet. Ligature from wrists. No DNA was developed from this item. Paintbrush handle. No DNA was developed from this item. So I'm confused as to how none of this stuff is turning into anything, is essentially what I'm saying. So it's just essentially all touch DNA, in which touch DNA is like not bodily fluids. It's like, I almost want to call it like low quality DNA. I almost do, but I'm not going to go that far to say it. But it's just like it can be easily contaminated. So it's like, it makes you wonder if this individual, this criminal, this intruder came in, how exactly did he just slip in and out without leaving a trace of anything? Oh, but the unidentified male. I'm going to get to that because that's weird. Okay. I think that's like the 4th thing. And the 5th thing. The 6th thing, help me understand this. From what we can see, no DNA was found on the inside. No legitimate DNA was found on the inside. This is a search warrant. This is a search warrant. Detective Arndt informed your affiant, and the affiant, I think it's doctor or the detective. Let me go back up to it. So they got the search warrant, and this is going for Detective James Byfield. Okay. So he's gone. He's got the search warrant. Detective Arndt is down at the coroner's office. Detective Arndt informed your affiant that Dr. Meyer, who did the coroner, who did the autopsy, stated to her that he observed red stains in the private area of the underwear or the undergarments that the child was wearing at the time that the child's body was subjected to the external visual examination. Dr. Meyer stated to Detective Arndt that the red stain appeared to be consistent with blood. Detective Arndt further informed the affiant that Dr. Meyer stated to her that after examining the underwear, he observed and this is not the long johns when I say that. He observed the exterior area of the child's body located next to the areas of the underwear containing the red stains and found no visible reddish stains in that area. Dr. Meyer stated to Detective Arndt that his opinion is that the evidence observed is consistent with the child's private area having been wiped by a cloth. It was wiped by a cloth. Now, if we go up here, and I'll touch on it just very lightly, they put the black light on JonBenet, and they found male fluids, or I'm sorry, not male. Let me not say male, but they found human fluids not visible to the naked eye under the black light, and stated that it was in the upper inner and outer left thigh, as well as the upper and inner right thigh. Detective Arndt stated that her observations result of the black fluorescent light observation is consistent with the presence of human fluids on JonBenet's thighs. But they're saying somebody tried to wipe it. Without the black light, so let me restate. Without the black light, there is nothing, no DNA. You can swab that, but to the naked eye, there is no DNA inside of the long johns. Think about that. All we have is DNA out here. Touch DNA. DNA that can get mixed up very easily and can be contaminated very easily. But the hard DNA that we need, we can't contribute it to anybody. Saliva here, male human fluid, male fluid here. We can't ascribe that to. We can't put that anywhere. Nobody gets that. Nobody's responsible for that. You see what I'm saying? And it's kind of interesting because we don't have any hard ties. You can see stuff on the outside and say, okay, what does it mean? But the important part, the part that's going to kind of give you reasonable doubt, that's there. It's right here. The part that can give you reasonable doubt is right here. But it's not evidence of anything. You gotta try to look deeper. Somebody, as the coroner said, as reported by the officer of the law, who reported this to a judge in sort of like a sworn testimony with this search warrant, said somebody tried to wipe this body down in this area, and they tried to wipe her inner thighs. But what was there stayed. I want you to walk with me for just a second. I don't want to be too graphic, But this is what I'll say. Whoever was doing whatever, and they didn't say if it belonged to, I think, I didn't read where it belonged to a male or a female. But I will say this. It's hard to gauge when young men are introduced to things. Right? I'll say that. Secondly, it's possible that this was an older individual. But whoever this was, it seems like somehow put the fluids there and tried to wipe it off. Is this an intruder who did this? Because I am confused a little bit. If this is an intruder, how did the intruder get Burke's DNA information right here? And possibly right here and right here. But the intruder himself left nothing but this part. On the outside, went and got a washcloth and wiped the inside. But did a good job framing or trying to frame Patsy and Burke. But did a terrible job trying to frame John. John's DNA is the only DNA that doesn't show up anywhere. How? I would say that's dang near impossible. How is John's DNA not showing up? Because I think they were saying, well, in the report, they were saying, well, it could be attributed to the fact that shared spaces. Yeah, I get that. But John was holding JonBenet close to him, going from the car to upstairs. He went in her room. He carried her up the stairs when he found her. He took off the tape. He tried to mess with the wrist ligature. And his DNA is not found. And we're talking about touch DNA. This stuff can sprinkle and get on you. His DNA is not found anywhere. But Patsy, who was asleep, her DNA is there, boom. And Burke, who did not interact with anyone except to go downstairs and play, his DNA is there. I don't know who did this, but you see how confusing it gets, right? You see how confusing it gets? Tell me where so far you would have been able, if you can, please help me understand where you would have been able to exonerate the Ramseys. I'm waiting. Where would you have been able to exonerate the Ramseys and try to focus on an unknown male? Knowing that essentially, and this is, I think, point 7, knowing that essentially Patsy and Burke kind of contributed as much to the DNA pool as this individual. And it's all touch DNA. We keep talking about the unknown male DNA as if it's like legitimate blood or saliva. But when I'm going through these forensic reports, I don't see no blood or saliva that's attributed to the unknown male. I see touch DNA. So who exactly is pushing the narrative that there is this overwhelming evidence that the unknown male should be looked at? Who's pushing that? When this individual cannot be excluded for certain parts, just like Patsy or Burke can be excluded for certain parts. If we were to treat Burke and Patsy like this individual, then they would all still be included. All three would still be included. Burke, John, you can go. We'll exonerate you. Don't know how, but we'll exonerate you. Patsy and Burke, y'all need to stay. And that's why I said we get to triangulating a little bit more. You see what I'm saying? We get to triangulating a little bit more. You guys, you two, were involved with the pineapple bowl and the tea. Patsy, you triangulate around the ransom note. And then Burke and Patsy triangulate around these garments. Something about you two. Something about you two that's locked in with this. Unless Burke got the laundry out of the dryer prior to this night and happened to touch that, that would be one way. That he got his hands all over the shirt and the long johns, or the nightgown and the long johns. That would be one way. If JonBenet had worn these the prior night, as in Christmas Eve, that would have been a second way. And maybe we would have to assume that, you know, he was kind of touching all on her and stuff like that. We would have to assume that. But as I understand it, these were pajamas that Patsy pulled out and kind of dressed JonBenet in. So she probably reached in her drawer and said, okay, here's some pajamas for you. Put those on. So my question kind of still stands. And the problem that we're looking at is this, the DNA in this is not clean. The DNA that we're being pushed to believe is strongly suggestive of an unknown male. That could easily be suggested in the same way we could suggest Burke and Patsy. So I have to ask you again, how in the world did Mary Lacey exonerate the Ramseys? I can understand how she exonerated Melinda and John Andrew and John. Little iffy on John. But how would you exonerate Patsy and Burke when the test told you they can't be included or excluded? Why would you exonerate them? And why would you apologize and say sorry? When the evidence is showing you right here, Patsy and Burke both touched this area. Their DNA, based on the DNA, we can't pull them out of this. Think about that. Let me know what you think. Maybe I'm tripping. Once again, thank you everybody for watching. Once again, huge shout out to Roha. Thank you. Huge shout out to Maine. Shout out to everyone liking, sharing, and commenting, and supporting. Appreciate you so much. Huge thank you to everyone. If you became a member or what have you, I appreciate everything. Continue to like, continue to share, continue to subscribe. Thank you for your encouragement, your kind words. Always much appreciated. And thank you for sleuthing with me. And until next time, take it easy.